Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I've got a really interesting topic tonight, and it's autism. And it's autism and dating, effectively, because we've got Kathy Carsley as our guest, who has had a significant and profound impact on individuals with autism spectrum disorder, ASD, throughout Canada for over 30 years. And she's actually got an event coming up next week that is speed dating for people with autism, which sounds kind of interesting. So I think we're going to talk a little bit about autism. We're going to talk about the healthcare system, and we're going to talk about dating when you've got autism. So welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thank you, Brian, for having me.
So tell me, why did you get involved to support people in the autism community?
Why do most people get involved to support a cause? They generally get involved because they're touched by somebody who has the cause. So I have two sons, one who is now 32, and my younger son who is 31. And my 31-year-old son, Lee, has autism.
And how long have you been involved, and when was he diagnosed?
That's a great question. So because my two sons are so close in age, I was able to see the lack of developmental milestones from my younger son because they're only 1 year apart. So my son Lee, who was diagnosed with autism, was nonverbal. He didn't reach the same benchmarks as my older son. So I brought them both to a neurologist because I had other concerns about my older son. And the neurologist said to me when my son was 2 years old, "Your son is in his own little world." And I said to him, "Okay, what do I do about it?" Now, this is 32 years ago. He said to me, "There's not a lot that you can do at this. There's not many services. So my only advice would be wait and see if things get better." And I'm not the type of person who could wait and see. So I got home and I opened up the Yellow Pages. If hopefully most people remember the Yellow Pages. And
no one under the age of 30 will.
Correct. And I looked under disability. And I was living in Montreal at the time. And I called this organization called the West Island Association for the Intellectually Handicapped. And I said, "I have a son who is in his own little world. I think he thinks the doctor thinks he has autism. Do you know of any programs?" And they said, "We have a program." And that's when my journey started 30 years ago. So I did what I hope most parents would do, which is whatever they can to give their child the best possible opportunities. So I did endless therapies. My son was nonverbal. He was aggressive. He was unmanageable. We couldn't go out in public because it was too challenging, physically draining, emotionally draining. But I took him to every therapy possible. And I was able to do so because I had the financial resources to access them privately. Most families are not fortunate enough to have those financial resources. So I consider myself very lucky because my son, who was very aggressive and nonverbal until he was around the age of 8. And at the age of 8, he started to speak. And a couple of years later, not only did he speak, but he corrected my vocabulary. He went to special schools, always with support. And I was motivated to help other families access the same supports that I got. So I decided that I was going to leave my career in real estate and dedicate my life to raising awareness and funding for autism.
Tell us about autism. In case not everyone understands, what is autism? How does it get diagnosed?
Sure. It's usually diagnosed, or it's best to be diagnosed in the earlier years, before the age of 5. And autism is a complex neurological developmental disability that affects socialization, communication, and behaviors. At the time that my son was diagnosed 32 years ago, it was 1 in 1,000 children had autism. In 2023, the incidence of autism is 1 in 36 persons have autism.
1 in 1,000 down to 1 in 36?
Correct.
Why?
Nobody has the reason. There is no definitive cause. There's no definitive cure. People say it's the environment. Everybody has their own theories of why there was an explosion of autism. All I can tell you is that the numbers of awareness don't justify the number of incidents. So I don't have an answer of why. I don't think the scientists have an answer of why, but the cases have year after year increased dramatically.
Is it genetic? Is it environmental? What's the cause?
In my unprofessional opinion, everybody is correct. I'm sure it is environmental. I'm sure it is genetic. It could be post or prenatal. I'm sure everybody, or vaccines. Everybody has their strong opinions of what causes it, but nobody knows for sure what causes autism.
I read an article that suggested men that were older and provided sperm increased the probability of autism. Is there any truth to that?
I'm not the person to answer that. I would say there's probably truth to that. I think there's truth to all the theories.
Now, autism is a spectrum. I understand that not everyone with autism is the same. There's very different levels. Can you explain what being on the spectrum means and what is the spectrum?
Sure. So the spectrum is a wide range of subcategories. And it could be from low functioning, which means that you're nonverbal and you cannot function independently. And then there are varying degrees to the very high functioning level of autism, which used to be called Asperger's syndrome, which has now been renamed as level 1 ASD. So some people still might refer to high functioning individuals as having Asperger, but the correct term now is level 1 ASD.
Why the change from Asperger's to level 1 ASD?
I'm not sure.
I was interested in, I was introduced to a young lady that was described to me as having Asperger's, level 1 autism. She seemed, she went to school. She was, very, very bright, normal in every way, other than, maybe not as socially aware as other people. I was surprised that anyone would have described her as anything other than, like everybody else.
You're correct that there are many individuals that have level 1 ASD that have never been diagnosed because they look normal, physically normal. They're often very intelligent. But the hallmark symptom of people under the spectrum is the lack of appropriate social interaction. And typically, most individuals under the spectrum have sensitivity to either sound, touch, light, anything in their sensories. So even individuals with level 1 ASD, and there's many individuals with ASD that they're not socially appropriate, and probably their work colleagues would say, he doesn't get it, or there's something off about them, or how rude or how direct, unfiltered. That's a great word to describe individuals on the spectrum that that don't have a filter. So they probably, or I would say, would have had a good chance of having level ASD or Asperger.
Okay, so if level 1 high functioning, formerly called Asperger's, is one end of the spectrum, can you walk us through the other levels of the spectrum?
Well, then you have very low functioning. So there's not different names of the varying stages. You're either low functioning, moderately functioning, high functioning, autism, or level 1 ASD, previously known as Asperger syndrome.
So what would be the difference between a level 1 and a high functioning?
That's a great question. Great question, Brian, because in my experience, because I have a son who is high functioning autistic, he's not level 1 ASD. So just in my observations, he doesn't have the tools to communicate effectively as someone with level 1 ASD. He doesn't absorb the same information or process the same information the way that somebody who is level 1 ASD. So they are very similar. They're both what they both have is they're both verbal. So they both can articulate. I just find that usually individuals with level 1 ASD are more like little professors. They're extremely intelligent. They're more factual. They're very scientific. They relate to facts better than they can relate to people.
So, some people have said Sheldon on whatever that show was level 1, and Rain Man was level 1. Is that consistent with your understanding?
Yes. I would consider Dustin Hoffman's character in Rain Man being high functioning autistic, and I would consider Sheldon being level 1 ASD Asperger.
Okay, interesting, fascinating. We're going to take a break for some messages and be back with Kathy Carsley talking about autism and a speed dating event she's going to be holding for people that have got autism next week. We're going to be back in just 2 minutes. Stay with us, everyone. This is kind of interesting because I think all of us, particularly if it's 1 in every 36 people today rather than 1 in 1,000 that it was a decade or two ago, all of us know someone that's got autism, and or if we don't know, we probably should know someone that's got autism if it's 1 in 36. And understanding, their challenges, their opportunities, their desire to date are all, their desire to communicate are all interesting things that it's helpful to be knowledgeable about. Stay with us. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour, Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Kathy Carsley. She is an interesting person in that she is organizing a speed dating event for people with autism, which is kind of a different kind of thing to do in life. She's gotten into this because one of her sons is a high functioning autistic individual. And I guess you want to get him a date. And so that's a wonderful thing that a mother would want to do, and has organized this event. Tell us where and when is the event? And if people either want to get tickets or want to recommend it to someone, how do they do that?
Perfect. So the event is next Monday evening, July 22nd in downtown Toronto, kitty corner to the St. Lawrence Market at a restaurant called The Corner Place. And it starts at 7:15. It's hosted by Single in the City. And to get tickets, we're looking for females to register because, gentlemen, all the male slots are sold out.
Oh, so we can't come.
For next time you can come. This time we are now focusing on, we're looking for women who would like to date a man, an interesting man with level 1 ASD and or related exceptionalities, which is high functioning autism, ADHD, giftedness, or a learning disability. There's many females that are in relationships with individuals on the spectrum. And in my opinion, individuals, males on the spectrum would be outstanding partners because they're typically smart, they are typically reliable, punctual, honest, quirky. When you're neurodiverse, your brain just works differently than the average person. But everybody still longs for a relationship, is looking for love or to enhance their social connection. So, ladies, for anyone who, whether you have an exceptionality, whether you're on the spectrum yourself, or you would embrace dating a man with level 1 ASD, which is previously Asperger's syndrome, then this is the event for you because there is a whole group of gentlemen who would vie for the opportunity to meet a lovely lady. It's for ages 25 to 40. And it will be a fascinating evening. It will be fun.
How does one register?
Regardless if you find love or not. And just by the way, Brian, you made me laugh because you indicated to your audience that Kathy is hoping that maybe she'll find a date for her son. My son wants nothing to do with this evening.
But is he going to be there?
He will not be there.
Oh, that's too bad.
But I am not doing this for my son. I am doing this to create this opportunity for individuals who long to have a relationship, see relationships that their family have, that their brothers and sisters have, that their neighbors and friends have, and they wish they had that opportunity. Well, next Monday evening on July 22nd in downtown Toronto, they're waiting for that opportunity. So I'm not doing it for my son Lee. I'm doing it for all the other individuals. This is not for profit. I am doing this as a volunteer. I am doing this because I'm passionate to support individuals who are neurodiverse. And maybe I could even explain, because not everybody knows what neurodiverse and neurotypical.
Yeah, please do that. But first of all, tell us if you're interested, where do you register? How do you get the tickets? How do you arrange to come?
So you go to the website singleinthecity.ca and you scroll down to the event, which is, there's a picture of a couple that says, Love Without Limits. July 22nd at the Corner Place, and you just click. Tickets are $50 for the evening. And we hope that your female audience will be motivated to have a really fun experience and just enhance their social connections. Whether they're going to find love or not, they will definitely find a great group of people.
Now, you told me that before we started that autism is 5-to-1 male versus female. Is that correct?
That's correct. 4 out of 5 are male. And that's why the male slots are sold out so quickly.
Why is it so much more a male phenomena?
Again, I cannot answer that question. It's they don't know.
So you were going to explain what neurodiverse means.
So neurodiverse is having a brain that works differently from the average person. It may be differences in social interactions, ways of learning, ways of communicating, and ways of perceiving the environment. That's neurodiverse, processing information that neurotypical, which means the typical individuals, that is not typical of most individuals.
And what would be included in neurodiverse? You mentioned ADHD. What else? So autism, ADHD. What else?
So on the spectrum, so level 1 ASD, autism, OCD, speech delay, different types of syndromes. I think that's what I can think of right now.
And most or not all of these caused by genetics or by socialization or by the environment, or do we know?
From what I understand, most people believe there's a genetic component and that there is a trigger to that component, but nobody can agree or have identified what the trigger is. And as you said, it could be the environment, it could be vaccines, it could be a wide range that no one has determined the cause of autism.
Now, ADHD has pharmaceutical solutions. Does autism have any pharmaceutical solutions?
No. There is a pharmaceutical solution to treat anxiety, which is pervasive in individuals on the spectrum, but there is no medication to treat people on the spectrum.
Please describe sort of what the traits of someone that would be low functioning would be. Are they the non-communicative violent person that you described?
There's varying degrees. It's almost like the general population, that there's varying degrees of functionality. So you will have in low functioning individuals that are nonverbal, that cannot feed themselves, that cannot that are not able to do anything themselves. You also have individuals that are violent and aggressive. And that's a whole other area that is that services are non-existent for that small group that are very challenged. So typically they need round-the-care help and support, and typically that support falls on the family with some but inadequate government funding.
So tell us, and I presume this doesn't apply to the the level one. But what kind of supports, alternative schooling, et cetera, exist for low functioning autistic people or this high functioning but not level one? Do they go to school? Do they go to school with assistance? Do they go to special schools? What are
All
what's
the
the
above,
future?
correct. But because there is not enough financial support from the government, there's inadequate support on all levels, regardless of the challenge, regardless if they have autism or not. The educational system and healthcare system is very thinly stretched. So typically, most individuals, regardless of the functionality, do go to school. And if they're lower functioning, they're in specialized classrooms with very low ratios of, meaning that there'll only be a few individuals in the class with one-on-one support. That's typical. When you start getting higher functioning, then typically the system will provide some type of educational assistant to assist the teacher. But again, the services have deteriorated over the years in the school system. So where there used to be one-on-one support, more often now there's one support worker for several individuals with a disability.
And are there homes that they can go to if they're overly violent?
There is almost non-existent places for individuals that are so low functioning and violent. How many times have we've seen in the news that parents have been so desperate that they've brought their child to a government MPP's office to drop them off because there's just no help. So there's very, very abysmal support for those with very high needs. It's very unfortunate.
In that movie Forrest Gump is introduced to his son and asks, I can't remember what the mother's name was, Penny, I think, wasn't it? I can't remember. If he's smart. Is autism something that is passed down to the next generation?
Before I had my son, I didn't know anybody who had autism. And after I had my son, I realized everybody in my family has autism. And as you said initially, we all have a bit of autism. We're all creatures of routine. From my perspective, those who have more autism, their characteristics are more prevalent. So, yes.
Fascinating conversation. We're going to take a break for some messages and be back in just 2 minutes with Kathy Carsley talking about autism, talking about being on the spectrum, and talking about dating and a dating event that she's holding on Monday night. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is Kathy Carsley. She is organizing a event on Monday for people that have significant autism. They're on the autism spectrum disorder, ASD, and it's an event for a speed dating event at a facility downtown Toronto. Remind us, if you could, Kathy, when, where, and how much is this event, and how does one register?
Thanks, Brian. So the event will be held Monday evening, July 22nd, at a restaurant called The Corner Place. Great food, great pub, gastropub, right across the street from the St. Lawrence Market in downtown Toronto. You register the event, you go to singleinthecity.ca and look for the event under July 22nd, and you click on the picture and you register. It costs $50. The male spots are sold out. We are looking now for females who either have an exceptionality, who either are neurodiverse, or you're a neurotypical female who would embrace dating a man on the spectrum and related exceptionalities.
Kathy, tell us a little bit about yourself. I understand that you were in real estate and you worked for a national autism organization here in Toronto. You were the founder of something called Unity for Autism, a national charitable foundation. Tell us about your own personal history and experience with autism.
So I moved, my family and I moved from Montreal to Toronto to get more services for my then nonverbal, unmanageable child. And I say that because he's such a delightful, very verbal, very articulate young man right now. And so we moved to Toronto back in the late 90s. And I wanted to dedicate my life to raise awareness and funding for other families who have a child with autism. So I worked for an organization, a national organization. They did great work, Brian, but I didn't see where my fundraising accomplishments were going. I didn't feel like it was making an impact. I didn't feel that the organization was efficient. And I left real estate so that I can make an impact for other families. So I decided after 5 years that I would open up my own foundation for autism, my own charity. And even if I raised a quarter of what I raised for that other organization, at least I know where the money would go. And so I never took a salary. I worked from home. And so for the past 22 years, the charity had a total annual overhead of only 2%, which is unheard of for a charity. And when my first year that I started fundraising, I hosted and organized a golf tournament, a corporate golf tournament, and I raised $25,000. And I drove home that night crying, thinking, all that work, a whole year, and I only raised $25,000. There's got to be an easier way. And so I just, I tried everything to raise awareness, reached out to celebrities, high-profile individuals. And one day I was invited to a fundraising conference. This is a great story. And at this fundraising conference was one of the guest speakers was John Tory, who at the time was the CEO of Rogers Cable. And his address was how to make the $10 million ask, how to be successful. And we were about 300 people in the auditorium. And he didn't say anything that was different, that was news to me. I listened, and he said that you have to lean on your board members. You have to, whatever you ask, whatever you previously asked the year before, ask for double the next year. It was all common sense. And at the end of his speech, he said, I'll take one or two questions before I run out. And I was sitting way towards the back, and I believe that I was sitting amongst a group of people that didn't speak English. So when he asked if there's any questions, only my hand went up in the back of the room. And John chose me. I thought it was divine intervention. And I said to him, Mr. Torrey, with all due respect, you're the CEO of one of Canada's leading companies. Your family is the founder of one of Canada's most prestigious law firms. You have deep roots in the Ontario community. You have political connections. You're a very well-connected individual. What advice would you give to myself? And I was taking excerpts from his own speech. I don't have anybody on my board that has the same connections as you do. Nobody wants to even be on my board because they don't get the same prestige or recognition as they would on the big hospital foundation. I can't even get past the donations committee for a $10,000 donation request. I will never get right through to the president to make a plea for $10 million because I'm fundraising for autism. And unless you're affected by autism, it's a poorly understood disability. And when you don't understand, you're not comfortable to support. So what would your advice be to me? And he said, you know, Kathy, I don't have anybody in my family. I don't know really anybody close to me that has a child on the spectrum. I do read the media, and I certainly have a sensitivity to the plight of families who are struggling to access programs. So what I'd like to know, could you do me a favor? He said this in front of 300 people. Would you afford me an hour of your time to educate me on autism? And can I afford you an hour of your time so that I can see how I can best build your contacts? And John became my champion. And John was not affected, didn't know anybody with autism, but he championed as if his own family member had. And it is unfortunately who you know, but he was so impressed that we had such a low overhead and that I was so passionate to make a difference. And I went from $25,000 my first year until I stepped aside a couple of months ago, where we were raising close to $1 million every year. So in the last 20 years, I had raised $15 million for organizations across Canada that would make a profound and direct impact on individuals with autism and their families and the heroes that support them.
Fantastic. Congratulations. So what was John Torrey's secret, silver bullet?
He's a very sensitive and genuine person that really cares about all causes, anyone who's less fortunate. And this is life. How often do you hear this? But after all those years, Brian, just a few years ago, his daughter had a daughter with autism. So John now has a granddaughter with autism. So it's now even more personal. He's more passionate.
But what did he say to you that changed it from 25,000 to $1 million?
He just called up people. I went to his office. He would afford me an hour of his time. He called up the presidents of companies and said, I have Kathy Carsley here. She's so efficient. She's so passionate. Could you please support her cause?
So he lent his Rolodex. He made the connections for you.
He did. He came to every event every year. And this is when he wasn't even affected by autism.
That is a great story, and it's a testament to not only John Tory and how we wanted to benefit the community, but also to you, and that you spent 20 years building that organization. So congratulations, and thank you.
It is about unity. I couldn't have done it myself. I did it with John. I did it with my neighbors. I did it with those people who feel fortunate enough, who want to help. We did it as a community. So I didn't do it alone, but people's support fueled my passion. And so when I stepped aside a couple months ago, I've always wanted to do this initiative, a speed dating event, not a workshop, not a course, an actual event for individuals that are high functioning, who long for a relationship.
Sounds fantastic. And what a story. We're going to take a final break and come back with some concluding comments in just 2 minutes, talking about autism and speed dating, romance. Sounds like an interesting combination. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. It's interesting to chat with Kathy Carsley today. She is a mother of 2 sons, one of whom has autism, and she has not only launched and founded her own autism charitable foundation called Unity for Autism that, as she has said, has gone from 25,000 up to a couple of $1 million, $15 million, I think you said, over the years in fundraising for support for autism. But she's now, as she's passed on the leadership of that organization, decided to launch another event, which is speed dating for people with autism. And the event is happening on Monday evening. You said, Kathy, that your son doesn't want to have anything to do with this event. Why not?
When he started to speak, it was unbelievable what came out of his mouth. And then one of the first things, which is another story, one of the first things he said to me was, "Mom, please, I don't have autism anymore." The other thing he said to me was, "Mom, please, don't sing." I used to love to sing to him. I can't sing. And he used to jump when he was nonverbal up and down, flapping his hands. And I used to think he loved the way I sang until he started to speak. And one of the first things he said was, "Mom, please, don't sing."
He was probably flapping his hands to get you to stop. So does he have a relationship? Does he not want to have a relationship? Why is he against the event?
Maybe because his mother is organizing it. But I suspect that he prefers communicating with his online community, which is how most individuals with ASD like to socialize. But the speed dating event really is a unique opportunity because individuals with ASD don't have the same events that are open to the broader public. So having this event is very desirable. I'm sure there are some of the, maybe many people in your audience that have seen the popular Netflix series, Love on the Spectrum. It's a very heartwarming, endearing series about very high-functioning individuals who are looking for love. And even if, again, I say, even if love is not in the near future, at least everybody's looking to enhance social connections. So I think that most people can relate that the dating apps are very frustrating, even amongst the general public. The candidates are not who they say they are. The pictures are not really what they look like. But when you go to a speed dating event, you can actually observe, witness if a person is sincere in the first couple of minutes. You can tell within minutes if you have share the same passions and interests. So I'm sure that it will be a great evening for most people. Again, we're looking for more females. So anyone who knows a female who would love to date an interesting person with an exceptionality, the gentlemen are waiting for the females.
I met someone who had a child with autism, and they said once a parent of someone with autism, you're a parent forever, and you're always going to be responsible for them. They're never going to leave the house. Is that true?
I think even neurotypical parents say the same thing. Failure to launch. You know what? I do believe that's a concern for many. But I feel so fortunate because my son was very severe, very low functioning when he was young. I called 911 when he was 5 years old and pleaded them to take him away. That's how desperate I was for support. But it now feels like a dream or maybe a nightmare, because today my son graduated from college. He has 2 jobs. He has the same job for the past 15 years. He lives on his own. He will always need some support, but he is definitely a success story because he was able to access the supports and programs that most families don't have that opportunity.
So what changed for him to take him from this nonverbal, violent time period to the current time period that you're saying that he's on his own and graduating from college?
I think it's a combination of endless therapies and the tools I provided him and his willingness to want to get more productive, wanting to get more functional. I believe that was a combination.
Well, he had to get more functional. He had to become communicative to tell you to stop singing. That was his only answer.
Now I'm stuck in the shower all by myself again.
Cassie, this has been a really interesting conversation tonight. I really appreciate you joining us and telling us a little bit about yourself, about your son, about autism, about being on the spectrum, and about your event next week. Single in the City is the website to go to find this event that is on Monday night.
And if I can say, sure, if anyone has questions about the event, they can email me directly at Kathy with a K, Kathy.Carsley, Carsley @gmail.com.
Kathy Carsley with a K. Thanks so much for joining us. That's our show for tonight, everybody. I thank you for joining us. And if you're on the spectrum or just interested in dating someone that's on the spectrum, check out Kathy Carsley's event next Monday. Single in the City is the website to go to register. I remind you, I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. You can stream me online, even from downtown Toronto at www.saga960am.ca. On my podcasts and videos, go up on my website, briancrombie.com, and go up on social media right as soon as the radio show goes to air, as well as podcasts. And I'm on YouTube. Thanks. Good night, everybody.